It's dangerous out here, protecting the village. But with great commands comes great responsibility. Hey, why don't you guys pick on someone your own size? Uh, wait a second, I didn't mean it. Now, before we get into actually showing you the commands itself, I want to briefly explain to you what's going on, what's happening, so that way it's easier for you guys to, number one, actually learn the commands, and number two, troubleshoot if something doesn't go wrong when you try to copy the commands. I will also have a world download on my Discord, so feel free to check that out. Now, for this thing, there's a couple of main components that you guys are gonna kind of see right off the bat, and a couple of hidden things that we're gonna get into. First of all, there's the velocity mechanic, which is actually very simple. Basically, if you are aimed downwards, you're going to increase in speed. If you're aimed upwards, you're going to decrease your speed. And now you're going to actually increase it much faster than you decrease it. It's not necessarily to be realistic, it's more so to be fun, and so you can maintain the high speed, but you still got to actually do a little bit of work, and you can't just constantly be going upwards and go at max speed the whole time. Now, that being said, you basically have two different states. You're either in a swing or you're not in a swing. If you are in a swing, you are always rotating or facing upwards at a constant pace or constant angle no matter what speed you're going. However, if you are not in a swing, you're always rotating downwards, but you can actually go faster to get much farther with that. The other two things is you can look up to make your swings shorter and look down to make your swings go wider, but that's only when you're in swing mode. And that's the basic mechanics of what's going on. Now behind the scenes, I've talked before about how most mobs in Minecraft don't have a proper functioning looking up and down coordinate when it comes to the teleport command. So we're using boats again. There's basically a boat 100 blocks above you that's controlling your rotation, your direction, your velocity, these types of things. Additionally, to actually move the player, one of the difficulties with Minecraft is that when you teleport a player, it just makes the camera look super wonky, as well as it basically restricts you from being able to look around. An easy way to get around that is just simply have the player ride something. Well, originally I had it set as a pig. Someone in my live stream reminded me that skeleton horses don't require a saddle, and they also don't have any drops whenever you kill them. So basically you are riding an invisible skeleton horse that is copying the location of the boat, and that is what is allowing you to swing. So that's sort of the base mechanics, that's what's happening. As for the animations, that's something I'm going to discuss in the second half of the video, as the animations aren't necessary, so they're going to be the second half of the video. So let's get into the commands. With all that out of the way, let's get into the actual commands. Now, we do have quite a decent amount. I won't lie, I won't pretend this is a small amount. But if you guys want this really cool, smooth movement that just works really, really well, it is a lot of fun. I think it's worth it. I did a lot of this on live stream. Not the animations, but the movements. Honestly, I think it's worth all the commands. And like I said, if you go on my Discord, I will have a world download available for this, probably like a couple days after the video drops. And that's going to include all the Spider-Man abilities, not just the web swinging. That being said, I should also note that not all of these are tied to the movements. I think these commands right here are all tied to the animation. So you don't necessarily need these. If you want to do this in first person, it actually does work really well in first person, as I'm showing you right now. But you don't need the animations. That's sort of if you want to do the extra work. And I will have the animations in the description so you can copy paste them, because they're very complicated commands that took me a long time to figure out. Man, it was such a headache. And I'm sorry for being long and rambly. Let's get into the commands. So the first thing that you're going to need to do in order to web swing is give yourself the tag spider. So tag at s add spider. I already have it, so it's not going to make a difference. The other thing you're going to need to do is type into the sidebar, scoreboard objectives, add vel dummy. That is going to be your velocity. Now, I believe I also have swing. Yeah, so dummy. So you want to do swing dummy. So type those into the chat bar. That is going to allow you to make use of the scoreboards that are going to play an important part. And yeah. There's a couple other small intro commands. Number one, we're going to give the effect of weaving to any player that has the tag spider. This just makes it so you don't move. You're not slowed down by cobwebs quite as much. You're still slowed down, but you can move a lot faster through cobwebs with the weaving effect. And also jump boost. This one's actually going to be much more important for web swinging because it's going to help you get a nice height boost to actually start out your swing. Okay, so then we are actually going to get into the mechanics of what's going on. There's a couple of things that you guys are going to need to know right off the bat. So there's essentially 4 entities going on in this. I already talked about the boat and the skeleton horse. The other one that you're going to need to pay attention to is the actual fishing rod hook. You actually can't see it most of the times unless you're specifically looking at it, but the hook is mostly there for visuals, but it's going to essentially teleport above wherever the the skeleton horse is. So most of the time when you're in first person or third person, you're actually not even going to be able to see it. But it's basically just there for visuals, but if the hook is there, that means that you're currently in swing mode, and if the hook is absent, then you're in fall mode like this. So that's the only thing you need to know. The other thing is that the skeleton horse is named Seat. Anywhere you see the name equals Seat, that's the skeleton horse. Anywhere you see these thing tag equals hook, that is the boat. So all this is doing is basically, if the player is in the middle of a swing, so if they have the tag swing, that means they're actively swinging, basically go off of where the nearest seat the skeleton horse is and teleport the fishing hook 20 blocks above the facing direction of the horse. So that works pretty well for most of it. Obviously, if you're looking right at the hook, it starts moving. But for the most part, when you're in third person or in first person, it's actually going to work really, really well. For where the hook aligns to, it's going to make a lot of sense. Not perfect, but the hook does not have an infinite. What the heck is going on here? Oh, what the? Okay, I have genuinely no idea what that was. I think it was something to do with wall climbing. So don't worry, I'm going to fix it before the tutorial for that comes out. All right. So this is just going to be giving the player the tag swing. If they are a spider and if there's a fishing hook within 30 blocks of them, they're going to get the tag swing. Pretty simple. And as the player is swinging, basically if there's not a fishing hook, we're going to remove the tag swing. Pretty simple. Next up, if the player has a tag swing but there's not a boat tagged hook in 160 blocks, it is going to summon a boat 110 blocks above the player, and we're going to actually aim it down 30 degrees. So you're actually, even if I'm aimed completely level, I'm actually going to start going downwards on my swing about 30 degrees. So that is on purpose. It's just going to give you a lot better movement to have it like that. Okay. So let me go back over here. Once we summon in the boat, we're going to give it the tag hook with this command. Then right here, we're going to summon the skeleton horse 110 blocks below the hook, so basically right where the player should be, and it's going to have the tag seat. Then we're going to use the ride command to make the player start riding the actual seat. And this command right here is going to make it so that if the player has velocity, it's going to copy the player's velocity onto the actual boat. So you guys can see I have a velocity of 20. That's the starting value you're always going to have. And as soon as I start swinging, the 20 is going to be copied onto the boat, which you can see on the right side of the screen. So they're always going to be the same value. This just makes sure that you can adjust the starting velocity, and it's going to make sure the boat has the right starting velocity. And of course, we're going to give the effect invisibility to the seat so you can't see it. I should also mention that this operations command is conditional. Okay, so what we just did is when the hook is out, it's going to give the player the tag swing, it's going to summon the boat, it's going to summon the horse, and give them the right tags and scoreboard values, just as a recap. Now we're going to get into the actual movement of the boat. And this looks like a long line of commands, but the good thing is they're mostly copies of one another. So the first thing is basically just make sure the hook is teleporting at itself, so it's just floating, it doesn't start falling out of the sky. And this is where the actual important stuff starts getting into. What we're doing is basically, if the player has the tag swing, and there's a hook there, it's going to make the boat always be teleporting 0.12 blocks forward, facing this way. So this is going to make it so it's slightly arcing up every time it moves. So this is going to be the same command repeated over and over again with a slight difference. So this is the same command right here. Basically, if the boat, which has the tag of hook, has a velocity of negative 15 or higher, it's going to do exactly the same thing. Teleport 0.12 blocks forward and face the same amount upwards. So basically, all of these are exactly the same except the velocity value is higher. So it's going to be chaining multiple different teleport commands based on how high your velocity is. So the higher velocity, the more it's going to activate. For instance, if I have a velocity of 0, then this command is going to work, and the previous two teleports going to work, but this velocity of 15 or higher won't work. So basically the way it works, the higher velocity, the more teleport commands are going to be activating in sequence. And basically they just go up by 15 each time. So I'm not going to stop and explain the rest of these. I will just briefly showcase them all, but literally it's the same except velocity is going to be going up by increments of 15. And they're literally all exactly the same. And if you want to increase the max speed, you can go higher than what I do. I think I go up to, 165 is the max speed. If you want to make it go faster, feel free to just add more of these and just increase the velocity by 15 each time. Okay, next up, we are going to look at the hook, and all we're going to do is teleport it below, or have the seat teleport below the hook. This just makes it so the skeleton horse is always following underneath the boat. Then this is going to actually kill the boat if the player has the tag kill swing, which we'll get into how to get that in a second. And similarly, we're going to kill the skeleton horse if the player has the tag kill swing. And we're going to stop the sound of the skeleton horse dying because it's super loud and obnoxious. Okay, these set of commands are how we kill the swing. So, for instance, if the player has a negative 31 velocity, we're going to kill the swing. So that's if you're going up too high and you start going too slow. You'll see that here in a second. Once I hit negative 31, it's going to kill the swing. And my velocity remains until I land. You saw as soon as I land, my velocity gets set back to 20, no matter what the score is. Gets set back to 20. So if you hit negative 31, you're not going to be able to restart a swing until you land. So this means you have to be smart in how you're maintaining your speed, or else you can fall to your death. And this is basically going to make it so that if the player no longer has a velocity of negative 31, we're going to remove the kill swing tag. So what we're going to be doing here is executing at the fishing hook. If there is a player with kill swing in 140 blocks, it's going to kill the fishing hook. Basically what this does is if I do the same example where I go up too high, it kills the fishing hook as well. That's all that does. Okay, so then, actually I don't end up using this one, so you can ignore that. This is basically going to make it so that if the player lands, they get the tilt kill swing commands. This one's pretty obvious. They touch the ground, they lose the kill swing. I don't think I need to explain that, but I will show it again. Okay, so then the next command is basically going to make it so if the player has a score of web that is 1 or higher, then is going to get the tag kill swing. Basically that makes it so that if the player is mid swing and they decide to use the web shooter, that's great. I use the web shooter. That's my fault. I also have really weird terrain here. Basically if the player is swinging and they decide to use the web shooter, it's going to take them out of the swing. That's all that is. So you can make it so any action kills the web. Okay, then we're going to start using the swing timer for a couple different things, and that is going to relate to animations. So basically, if the player is swinging, add a score swing of 1 to them, and if the player is not swinging, make their swing score 0. And finally, if their swing score is 1, we're going to re-teleport the boat. This just means if you're switching between swings, so I've already swung, and I'm still going off in this direction, but I want to go to the left. As soon as I swing, it's going to change my direction. That's making it so that it only changes your direction when you initially start the swing, but it's like if I swing this way, I don't start swinging to the right all of a sudden because I start looking to the right, as that would look kind of weird. Okay. Where was it? I didn't show these. I am sorry, guys, but I'm a little out of order. Okay, so we already did these. The other thing that we're going to be doing is the reverse. If the player is not sneaking and they have a rotation that is basically below -30, so if their rotation is like from here to here, so they're somewhat downwards, they're going to start gaining levels. This is going to start removing their levels if they are swinging, and this is just going to make it so they remove levels if they're not in Skeleton Horse. You might be asking, why in the world am I changing levels? And that is entirely to do with the animation. Because I'm not the best with animations, and I found this really weird workaround. You see how my arms, whenever I'm not swinging, they slowly start to fold back? That is actually based on the player's current level. I'll show you that more when I actually get to the animations, but yeah, that is what's going on. That's why I'm changing levels. If you don't care about the animations, you don't need to do those 3 commands right here. Now, I accidentally skipped over these velocity commands, so let me show you them. Basically, what we're doing here with all these commands is based on the player's rotation, we're going to be adding or retracting velocity from them. So this right here is while the player is swinging, if their RXM is below 0 or 0, then basically they're aiming downwards, they're going to be adding a velocity of 2. But this right here says if their RX is 0, meaning they are here or higher, then they are going to start losing a velocity of 1. Now that is important. You gain velocity from swings twice as fast as you lose it. It's not the most realistic, it's just more fun. Feel free to adjust that if you want to. This is basically going to make it so that the boat's velocity is equal to the player's velocity on startup. And this is going to make it so when the player lands, their velocity is reset to 20. This is the velocity max, which I have set to 200. Basically, if the player's velocity gets over 200, it'll start removing their velocity, not like all the way back to 0, just below 200. Okay, so that is what we need for the swing, but we still have to do the bit of when you're not swinging. Right now we have everything done for the swing, but we have to deal with this part. When the hook's not in the air and you're sort of free falling, we still got to make that happen. And that is what these sets of commands are supposed to do. So this is while the player is not swinging. Once again, we're going to add velocity if their boat is aimed downwards. And this is on a 1-tick delay. And on a 2-tick delay, if the player is aimed upwards, they're going to remove velocity. So pretty simple. Your velocity changes more when you're swinging compared to free falling, but it's still the same deal. If you're aimed upwards, you lose velocity. You're aimed downwards, you gain velocity. And the movement's going to be pretty much the same. We're actually going to start all the way at the top. So this is basically if the player is moving at all, we're going to teleport them forward, facing down a decent amount. Now the thing is, all the rest of these are just going to teleport you forward. See, there's no facing amount, which means it's not going to change your angle of rotation whenever you're free falling. So your angle of rotation is not based on your speed whenever you're free falling, but it is when you're swinging. If that doesn't make sense, just trust me, it works. So we showed this one up here. So this is no matter what speed you're going, you're always going to be teleporting forward and aiming downwards. The rest of these are going to be based on velocity. So if your velocity is -15 or higher, teleport forward 0.2 blocks, 0.12 blocks. If it's 0 or higher, teleport 0.12 blocks. 15 or higher, 1-2 blocks. You guys get the idea. I'm not going to explain all of these, but I am going to show you all of these. So basically, you're going to maintain your speed coming out of a swing, but you are going to be affected by gravity. And you'll notice that affects you more kind of when you're going slower. It works, just trust me. Okay, now, we have a couple more things here. These are actually completely optional. Technically, what you have will work right now. The last 2 details, as I discussed earlier in the intro, is that when you aim down, your swing is going to be longer. If you aim up, your swing is going to be shorter. So that's what these last 4 commands are here. It really does help you make some quick adjustments, especially if you're about to hit the ground. You can kind of aim upwards really quickly, and that might just pull you up just enough to not hit the ground. Basically, all we're doing on a 0-tick delay is we're checking at the player if their RXM is below 30. So if they're aiming downwards, we're going to just make them aim downwards, or make the boat aim slightly more downwards. And if it's 60 or lower, we're going to do it again. We're going to repeat the same command. This just makes it so if I'm kind of aiming in this range, it's not going to change anything. If I aim sort of in this range, it's going to make me go a little bit lower in my swing. And if I go like this, it's going to make me go a lot lower in my swing. We literally do the reverse going the opposite direction. If the RX score is negative 30, then we're going to teleport upwards. And same thing, negative 60, we're going to teleport upwards. The other thing to know is with RX, it's actually negative is upwards and positive is downwards, so in case you're curious. Once again, I apologize if some of this isn't making sense. This is a more complicated tutorial, which makes it a bit harder to explain, but hopefully you guys are able to follow and add this to your own worlds. Okay, finally, we have the animations, which shout out to, I forget their name, on my Discord, who was able to give me these advanced player animations. I don't fully understand how to use them. I did my best. I think it came out well. The only thing I don't like is that I had to use XP orbs. Unfortunately, the scoreboard component doesn't work without a behavior pack, so I couldn't use scoreboards and keep it completely vanilla. So we use levels. It's whatever. It's all good. Now, all of these are going to be in the description. The important thing to note is that this chain starts with an impulse command block, which you'll see is like the only, ignore that one, is the only impulse command block here. The reason being is that you don't want to have this repeating. It's going to glitch out. What you want to do is every time you load up the world or have a new player that wants to mess around with Spider-Man commands, you literally just press this button, and that is going to trigger the animations to start working. You'll notice if I press it, I kind of glitch out a little bit. It's a little bit hard to see, but trust me, that's how you want it to be. And then you do all this stuff, which is ugly and gross. And I didn't figure out any of the stuff that's in this chain. So shout out to the people who did. I will put that in the description because I'm blanking on the person in my Discord's name who gave it to me. But yeah, this is basically using a bunch of animations, setting their values equal to different values, like different variables. And all these different variables are controlling different aspects of the player's basically rotations for their body parts. It's a bunch of math that I don't fully understand, but you know what? It does work somehow. This is all setup. If you guys want to make your own custom animations, you can use this same setup, and then you only use like one commands to actually manipulate the rest of it. Don't worry, all those will be in the video description. So that's just setup. If you do all of these commands, nothing will happen. It will not change anything. The actual specific custom rotational stuff is happening here. So the first one that we have is the actual rotation. Basically what this is making it is that the I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right things. Yeah. This is just complicated stuff. Once again, I'm just going to put these in here. What all these values are doing is basically making it so the animation is only happening if the player is riding it. So as soon as you are landing, the animation stops, more or less. And all that's happening is I'm doing some math. This is the command that I did figure out myself that more or less makes it so the body does a rotation based on the boat, but done with some multipliers and some addition. The legs kind of swing even to a greater degree than the boat does. The arms are doing their own thing based on the player's level. Honestly, dude, this was such a headache to figure out the animation, so I hope you guys like them. They're not perfect, but I think they're pretty decent for what they are. I quite enjoy the animations. Even if they're not completely perfect, I think they came out pretty good. And this was genuinely such a headache. And that was a huge mouthful, and this is going to be a long tutorial. But I think that's it. If you guys have any questions, join the Discord. Wall download's going to be there. Feel free to use it. Bye-bye. The video's over now. You guys can go. If you guys are still watching and you want to prove that you made it all the way to the end, leave someone your comment what your favorite Spider-Man villain is. I don't know what mine would be. I mean, Green Goblin's pretty tough. The writers. I'm gonna go with the writers. Yeah. Yeah. Tell me your favorite Spider-Man. I don't know. I'm tired. Go enjoy.